Autistic people struggle to get jobs, let alone keep them. But in fact, we're great employees, and I've got the research to prove it. Let's go. Employment is a critical part of an autistic person's ability to thrive, to enjoy a good quality of life. But every aspect of the employment system is built for autistic people to fail. Whether it's your CV, resume, or crafting a cover letter, interviews, or simple probationary periods in a role, or the big one, navigating HR. None of these are helpful for autistic people. If you can't get jobs, how do you have a resume? If you have challenges in social communication and interaction, how do you craft a cover letter? How do you navigate a job interview? By the way, job interviews in the modern day world have absolutely no relevance to finding the best people for the roles. And if you're an autistic person, the idea of getting through an interview, let alone a second interview or getting a job offer, is basically a fantasy. Getting a job, in fact, can be harder than keeping a job once you get into the system where you're trying to do your job, but you don't realize there's all these peripheral things that have no relevance to your job that are somehow part of your job. And then, of course, when you don't get them, HR come down from the ivory tower and give you a big old fat HR slap. But you know what? I'm sick to death of only talking about the issues and challenges autistic people face in the workplace. So this video is nothing but actual legitimate proof that autistic people make bloody awesome employees. Let's shine a light on the greatness, the awesomeness of the autistic employee. And I'm going to do just that with these 5 things that make autistic people great employees. Oh, and I've actually got recent research to prove it. Number 1, loyalty. In business, in employment, frankly, in life, loyalty is a big thing. Is there much more valuable things than having the loyalty of others? Autistic people can be very, very loyal people. Everyone's different. What I'm saying is, let's just specifically zero in on the employment side. Now, autistic people, as a rule, are applying for jobs because they actually want them. Autistic people, in general terms, don't often get jobs they don't want to do. So if autistic people have applied for a job and gained a job, number 1, they should get a medal. Number 2, you can in effect rely or expect immense loyalty, loyalty to the role, a commitment, a want to remain in the role long term. They are not going to apply for a job, get a job, and then on day 2, start to work out where they can go next. So the idea of autistic people applying for and maintaining jobs they're passionate about clearly shows a sense of loyalty. And the bottom line for employers, what does that mean? Okay, well, it saves you money, it saves you time, it saves you resources. Why? Well, it reduces staff turnover. It reduces your need to recruit. And further to that, being able to retain loyal employees means you're not constantly having to upskill or, train, or what do you want to call it, induct new people all the time. Now, the second reason why autistic people make great employees has maybe a direct, certainly an indirect link to the research I'm going to talk about in a moment, which proves all this on the premise of a thing we like to call the bystander effect. But first, let's just talk more broadly about how autistic people make great employees because of our honesty, our openness. It's a widespread belief, it's a widespread misinterpretation that autistic people are rude, are abrupt, are blunt. And why is that? Well, the way you interpret the world is the way you interpret the world. So if you want someone to be rude or blunt, they're going to be. The point is, autistic people communicate differently because we have a different brain. What you may say is rude or abrupt or blunt, or maybe you lacked any kind of empathy towards me by saying that, right? Just means that's how you're interpreting it coming from an autistic brain with challenges in social communication and interaction. So I would say you might think that maybe you're the loved one of an autistic person because you don't realize to an autistic person, just saying the truth, saying what we feel is the honest, open truth of the situation is in no way malicious. There's no intentions behind it. It's really just an act of breathing, living and breathing. From my point of view, I look at it like I'm open and honest to be real, to be kind. People say telling the truth is mean. That doesn't make any sense to me. So employers can get bogged down in a misinterpretation that autistic people just aren't a good fit for the workplace because they make the neurotypicals feel uncomfortable. But in reality, autistic people are simply open about our feelings, our intentions, our thoughts, whereas neurotypical employees, and this is just an opinion, may in fact tell you what you want to hear, may in fact omit or just plain lie based on avoiding the repercussions, be that the social repercussions in the workplace or the professional repercussions. Autistic people are honest, sincere, trustworthy employees. Number 3, the next reason that make autistic people great employees is around productivity. I reckon increased productivity is a really great attribute of an autistic employee. Autistic people can be hyper-focused in what they're currently trying to achieve, so hyper-focused on a particular task. But you should also mix into that the idea that we actually enjoy doing our job, enjoy doing our roles, our tasks. And as a result of that, we don't crave, need, or even acknowledge there's some sort of want or need to socialize in the workplace, to chit-chat, to stop, to take 700 breaks. But in the broader context, it's not something that occurs to us often or makes us feel good in any way. Well, that's going to lead to an increased productivity. If we are passionate about what we're doing, if we're focused on what we're doing, we're going to be more productive as employees. And there's nothing about this that is an exploitation. Let's be clear, autistic people require employment like everyone else. This is a positive thing. Employers can provide employment to autistic people who don't actually want to get bogged down in the non-productive, whatever people do in the workplace. Actually do their job because they want to do their job. They want to work, do their tasks, and go home. That's a positive. That's a win-win for both. We are simply tapping in to a different brain, an autistic brain, a neurodivergent brain, a brain that has a stronger logical side than emotional side. And really, when it comes to productivity, that in itself is even another attribute, another positive. It usually means we have strong analytical skills. We can spot patterns. We can see things that others can't see because of that stronger logical side. Now, the 4th reason that makes autistic people great employees is our ability to, in effect, think differently. Now, don't glaze over this one. I'm not just going to say we have a different brain. That's the starting point, because we do. We have an autistic brain or a neurodivergent brain. So number 1, that is, in essence, how you build neurodiversity in the workplace. Keep in mind, if you're an investor, right, you want an investment portfolio that's diverse. You want to diversify your investments. That's a given. Tick, you're an agriculturist or a farmer. But your crops or your livestock, you want to diversify. That's a good thing. That's done. Tick, neurodiversity in the workplace. It means you're providing yourself with a diversity of minds, a diversity of employees, and potentially an increase in growth, productivity, success. That's an everyday thing that's a given. No tick. No. Makes no sense, does it? It doesn't. You can't get a neurodiverse workplace by hiring only neurotypical people. But how do you actually illustrate or quantify the idea of thinking differently? Let's look at this in general terms. So this is just purely for contextual reasons. So a neurotypical employee may often start with the full context of the task prior to then asking for more details, filling in the gaps. But for autistic people, in general terms, we require the details, the gaps, to be filled in first. In other words, we need all the details, we need all the gaps to be filled in first, so we can then go on to understand the full concept. Well, that just sounds like you're making autistic employees sound crap, Orion. And to that, I would say, my friend, you're welcome. I've just provided a little exercise to see exactly how your brain interprets or misinterprets autistic people. In fact, that's a strength. Neurotypical people just accept the full concept, understand it, and don't worry about the little details, the gaps, until later, if required. Therefore, each new task is done on the premise of past tasks. But autistic people, in effect, are starting afresh for each task. Because unlike a neurotypical employee, we are actually gaining all the details, filling in all the gaps, and therefore building from there. See? So it's not about past stuff. It's about, here's the task, here's the broader context of the task. Great. Before we move forward, let's get some more details. Let's fill in the gaps. Let's build this task from the ground up. We don't have all these things in the past coming in and influencing it. Or we're not just accepting the past and not doing the actual groundwork. Because if you do that, you miss things. And that's exactly what happens. In doing it the way the autistic mind requires it, when neurotypical people miss things, autistic people, just as a natural occurrence, pick up on the things that have been missed. Oh, but neurotypical people employees would too, Orion. Yes, but that's the thing. Neurotypical people may well pick up on them when they blow up in their face quite a long period down the line. Autistic people are going to pick up on the things that were missed in the building process of the concept of the task. Therefore, being able to acknowledge them, identify them, and they might see the patterns, the analytics of it, and create solutions to therefore complete the task more successfully, more promptly, more efficiently. What does that do? For employers, that reduces costs and improves efficiency and productivity. You're welcome, mate. Number 5, this is the final reason I've got that makes autistic people great employees. And this is directly connected to the recent research that proves all of it. And actually, I think you're going to really love this. It's the bystander effect. Now, the bystander effect basically suggests that people in large groups, so workplaces, will avoid taking action in a risky situation as they feel that the responsibility will fall to someone else in the group. In other words, in a workplace, because there's lots of people feel like they don't need to speak up because someone else will, the bystander effect. Now, it's believed that neurotypical people primarily base their actions on the behavior of others. But autistic people, as you may well know, are less likely to feel the social pressure to remain silent if they see practices that are inefficient or dysfunctional in the workplace. Do you see where I'm going with this? From the outset, I just want to say, even if you have little to no interest in specifically gaining employment or this topic of employment, I promise you that this research will more than fascinate you. I want to tell you a bit about a recent study, Organizational Benefits of Neurodiversity, Preliminary Findings on Autism and the Bystander Effect. Because this research explored that very effect on autistic people. The research looked into whether autistic employees are more likely to report issues or concerns in an organization's systems and practices that are inefficient or dysfunctional. So whether autistic people, rather than neurotypical people in the workplace, are more likely to see concerning practices, systems, things that are killing productivity and are more likely to, in effect, bring them to the attention of the organization. Inefficiencies, dysfunctional processes. By the way, this is like 101 for autistic people. We are born to wake up in the morning and find things that aren't right or wrong or aren't efficient, or that doesn't seem good to me, well, that doesn't seem very fair. This is like our bottom, and there's actually a study to prove it now. I told you this is interesting. So, according to the bystander effect, when witnessing situations that are inappropriate or harmful, the likelihood of intervening and its promptness decreases with increasing group size. This principle of social inhibition has 3 main mechanisms to explain this phenomenon. I'll grow up like you can say it better. Number 1. Diffusion of personal responsibility, aka believing someone else will intervene. Number 2, group influence. So that's relying on others' reaction to recognize the need for help, perception that other witnesses do not appear to be worried. And 3, evaluation apprehension. So prevailing social norms about exercising voice and lack of confidence in one's competence to intervene, fear of being negatively judged by others if they misinterpret the situation, and there is no need to help. Now, if you're autistic and you read that, listened to that, absorbed that, there are alarm bells going off. Let's quickly go through them one by one. This is Autism 101, guys. Again, so number 1, this idea that someone else will intervene. Now, if you're an autistic person, this doesn't occur to you. If there's a right or wrong and you can see it, it doesn't occur, in my opinion, it doesn't occur to you, nor does it cross your mind, nor do you even turn your mind to the idea that, well, I'm sure someone else will bring this up. I don't care if someone else will intervene. If I see something that's wrong, I'm going to say that's wrong. So already, you can see how autistic people don't fit on the current view of the bystander effect. The next one, right? So relying on the reactions of others to recognize that this actually is a problem. As autistic people, we can struggle to, 1, recognize the reactions of others, let alone interpret them correctly. So the idea that we would somehow be able to see a right or wrong, look at the crowd around us, assume someone else will take care of it, or go, I don't think this is a problem because everyone else's reactions like, this is just day-to-day stuff, guys. This is, hey, that's what we do here. Didn't you realize? Dysfunctional is our middle name. And the third one is, to me, I'm not even sure if I know how to say it right. Social norms about exercising voice. I don't know what that means. A lack of confidence in my competence to intervene. No, don't know what that means. It's like it's an automatic trigger. If there's something wrong, I'm going to point it out. Why? Because it's wrong. But what about the other people? They could do it. It doesn't matter. I'm going to do it. But they're all making a reaction that it's normal. I didn't see that. I didn't get that. So it's really interesting, isn't it? Fear of being negatively judged by others if they misinterpret the situation and there is no need for help. Well, again, I'm negatively judged or misinterpreted by others every day for everything I say and do. So that's pretty much, did I say mush? I'm keeping it in. That's pretty much par for the course in my life. So it doesn't really occur to me. But now to the good stuff. That's the bystander effect. But utilizing the lens of an autistic brain, what did the research find? AKA proof that autistic people make great employees, in addition to everything else I've already given you in this video. So the study found that compared with neurotypical employees, autistic employees are more likely to indicate they would identify and report inefficient processes and dysfunctional practices in the organization when they witness them. Number two, less likely to report they were influenced by the presence of other bystanders when deciding whether they would intervene when they witness instances of inefficient processes or dysfunctional practices. Basically what I was just saying before, the idea that it even matters. That doesn't mean we don't think you're cool, we don't like you, it just means that it doesn't matter. If I think it's wrong, it's wrong. Or I guess I'm not swayed by your need to fit in and to not stand out or be seen to be rocking the boat. I get seasick, so whatever I can do to get out of the boat is fine. Number three, autistic people are more likely to acknowledge the influence of others when they decide not to intervene. This is important for employers because you can actually rely on autistic people to, in effect, identify potentially other fellow employees that may in fact be toxic, that may in fact be bullying or, well, I guess that is bullying, isn't it? Regardless of the level, pressuring other employees to shut up or forget about it or that's okay. Now, that can work both ways. They may be put there in place by management, but then again, they may be people that management aren't aware of and wondering why it's always so toxic or inefficient. Number four, autistic employees less likely to formulate elaborate, abstract explanations for their decision to intervene when there are a large number of bystanders present. We just say it as it is. We just speak our mind on the premise of this is what we feel and see. This is what we've identified. As an autistic person, don't you find it bizarre too? Like the wording of some of these things, how elaborate my explanation would be for intervening when there's lots of people that also saw the problem. This is bizarre. How neurotypical people live and breathe, I've got no idea. And number five, the final finding, autistic employees more likely to acknowledge the influence of others on their decisions to intervene when they report higher levels of camouflaging. Let's read that again. Let's make sense of this. Autistic people are more likely to acknowledge they have been influenced by others on their particular decision to intervene in an issue when they're in moments or when they are tending to mask or camouflage more often. So during periods of higher camouflaging, we can actually acknowledge that our decision was impacted by this feeling that we needed to mask, to blend in, to camouflage. In other words, we could potentially just slightly adhere more to the bystander effect when we were trying to act neurotypical, yet still fail in that, and in effect, call ourselves out. In a way, the autistic employee with regards to the bystander effect is kind of like Jim Carrey in that movie Liar Liar. I can't lie! Autistic employees want to take some things back to your employer or employers watching. I've got specific tips and strategies to empower autistic people in the workplace. Check out my video now. Fired for being autistic. Workplace adjustments for autistic employees.